Joseph Anderson, age 30, and Kiara Anderson, age 29, lived at 390 Westview Terrace in Lithopolis, Ohio. The couple had two sons, 5-year-old Joseph Jr., and 2-year-old Jeffrey. Kiara worked at Applebee's restaurant in Lancaster, Ohio. Kiara served in the military right out of high school, where she was deployed twice. She served until 2018. Kiara was born in Shaker Heights in Cleveland, Ohio, then moved to Twinsburg. Kiara and her sister grew up in the foster system, but were later adopted to the same family. Kiara met Joseph while serving in the military. The couple married and had their first child while still serving in the military. The couple then moved to Florida, then later moved to Lithopolis, Ohio right before Jeffrey, their second child, was born. Kiara had a deep love for baking and was constantly baking for people in her community. It was her way of showing love to the people around her. Joseph Jr. loved helping his mom bake things too. Joseph Jr. loved dinosaurs and Lay's barbecue chips, and his younger brother Jeffrey loved his brother and followed him around everywhere. Joseph and Kiara's relationship was troubled. The two recently separated and Kiara confided in her sister, Duma, that she was planning on filing for divorce soon. The couple's relationship had been strained for quite some time. Kiara wanted to leave before, but she didn't want to break up the children's home, so she stayed. Officers were called to the family home just before 10 a.m. on Wednesday, December 22 in 2021 when a neighbor received a text from Joseph Sr. that he had snapped and killed his family. First responders arrived and entered the home where they found the bodies of Joseph, Kiara, and their two young children, Joseph Jr. and Jeffrey. All were dead by gunshot wounds. Further investigation found that there were no previous calls to the home and neither had a criminal past. Fairfield County Sheriff Alex Lope confirmed the murders are being investigated as a murder-suicide. He stated that it appears the mother and kids were intentionally killed and Joseph committed suicide. Sheriff Lope said, "Look out for each other. If you know someone who is struggling, reach out your hand. If you are struggling, take someone's hand. It may sound cliched, but we are all in this together." Lithopolis Police Chief Jay Barton made a public statement after the murders saying, "We are in this together." He said he feels he needs to remind those struggling with issues related to mental health that help is out there. Please don't hesitate to ask for it. Seeking help is not a sign of weakness, and there should be no shame or stigma attached. He continued saying the murders were a harsh reminder that no community, regardless of size, is immune from such tragedies. It may be beyond comprehension why someone would choose to commit such unspeakable acts. The nation has seen a surge in mental health crisis over the last few years, and there don't seem to be any easy answers in reducing these cases. Our department has responded to several calls this year regarding individuals having thoughts or making threats or attempts of suicide. He encouraged those with such thoughts to reach out. Chief Barton thanked the responding agencies, as well as the dispatchers who handled the calls. He asked the community to keep the family in their thoughts. "I have personally spoken to some of the family members, and one of the toughest parts of this job is telling someone that their loved one is gone. They are grieving. The community is grieving." Inside the Applebee's restaurant where Kiara worked, her co-workers set up a table near the register to honor their friend and fellow co-worker. They placed flowers, a plaque, and an army flag in her honor. Howard Homan, Chief Operations Officer, IMH Franchise and Applebee's franchisee, released a statement Thursday. "We're devastated to learn of the tragic passing of our beloved team member and her children. Our thoughts are with their loved ones during this incredibly difficult time." Murder-suicide only accounts for about 1.6% of all murders. In a study about murder-suicide, Milton Rosenbaum, a professor of psychiatry, determined a murder-suicide assailant can include women. In the United States, the majority of cases are male on female though. Around a third of partner homicides end in the suicide of the perpetrator. The study found that the following are indicators of murder-suicide: the male partner is much older than the female partner, a breakup or pending breakup, a history of abuse, financial issues, and talks about suicide are usually indicators. In Denmark in the 18th century, people wanting to commit suicide would sometimes commit murder in order to force a death sentence upon themselves from the courts. Their thought process was that would give them time to repent and avoid damnation in the afterlife. Funeral arrangements were not made known to the public. Daniel J. Sugstad, 29 years old, went to Holt High School. His parents were John and Barbara Sougstad. John Sougstad, age 58, graduated from Michigan State University with a doctorate of philosophy. He was adjunct assistant professor at Michigan State University, and was a faculty member at the school's College of Social Science. He was a social worker, school psychologist, and educator. He worked for decades with children and families. His recent position was as the Assistant Director of Special Education for the Jackson County Intermediate School District. John supervised over 3 dozen employees. Barbara Sougstad, age 65, was a registered nurse for over 30 years. She retired from McLaren Hospital in 2019. She had a passion for riding horses and often visited a farm in Carson City called Ride Astride Performance Horses. Daniel had one older brother, Ryan Sougstad, age 29, and 2 sisters, Michelle Salas and Alicia Martinez. Ryan graduated from Holt High School and attended Lansing Community College. He enjoyed listening to music, playing basketball and golf. He was the proud father to his only daughter, 5-year-old Quinn. Daniel and his older brother Ryan lived with their parents at their home on Bishop Highway in Windsor Charter Township. On September 25 in 2021, a 911 call came into the Eaton County Sheriff's Office reporting a disturbance at the Sougstad home. While police were en route to the home, the next-door neighbor, Benjamin Crocker, heard people screaming, then multiple gunshots. He stepped outside, but the direction where the gunshots came from was obscured by a thicket of trees. He then heard a child screaming, and noticed a young girl running on his lawn from the direction of the Sougstad's house. The child was bloody, limping and missing one of her shoes. The little girl told the neighbor that she saw Uncle Danny murder her dad and grandparents. He noticed a black car pulling out of the driveway at the same time. The neighbor immediately called 911. Police made entry into the home and found a woman and 2 men deceased from multiple gunshot wounds. All 3 were pronounced dead on the scene. The victims were later identified as John Sougstad, Barbara Sougstad, and Ryan Sougstad. Police quickly realized there was another son who lived at the residence, but not in the home, and quickly focused on him as a primary person of interest in the murders. Police put out a be on the lookout for Daniel Sougstad. He was picked up the following morning at a traffic stop without incident. He still had blood spatter on his pants and glasses. When authorities searched his vehicle, they found several unused shells for a shotgun that matched the shells at the scene of the murders. Also in the back seat they found the murder weapon, a 12-gauge shotgun. Judge Julie O'Neill ordered he be held without bond on 3 counts of open murder and 3 counts of using a firearm during a felony. He was ordered to undergo a psychological evaluation. Sougstad was represented by the county's public defender's office. He pled not guilty to all charges. During the investigation, it was found that Daniel Sougstad had a history of mental illness. In 2018 he was hospitalized and received treatment for psychosis. He was having suicidal thoughts and severe paranoia. At the time, he felt that his family and friends were plotting against him. The psychiatrist who evaluated Sougstad at the time, noted that he kept a .22 gun under his bed. At the time, his mother asked his father to remove the gun since he was having thoughts of harming himself. His evaluation noted that he was expected to harm himself or someone else in the future. 5-year-old Quinn, Ryan's daughter, was taken to the hospital for her injured foot. She was questioned but said she doesn't remember anything now. According to Detective Troy Gardner, her foot injury was not from the shotgun. Prosecuting attorney, Chris Anderson, said the scene was horrific. He described that J Sugstad was shot 4 times, once from a distance, and 3 at close range, then stabbed 11 times. Ryan was stabbed 4 times and then shot 4 times. Barbara was shot once in the back in the doorway. Daniel Sougstad's attorney, Eaton County Public Defender Timothy Havis, stated that the prosecutors were relying on third-person testimony about what the 5-year-old said after she ran to the neighbor's home. In addition, Havis said, Sougstad had very little blood on him, something that does not match the graphic nature of the crime Anderson described. The prosecution is very far away from proving their case, Havis said, claiming that there were many holes in the case. The judge ruled there was enough evidence for Daniel Sougstad to stand trial. His trial date has yet to be determined. The killing of one's parents is rare. In Australia between 2002 and 2012 there were 128 incidents recorded. That averages to around 14 cases per year. In Canada the average is around 29 cases per year. In the UK it's around 9 cases per year. According to Dr. Kathleen M. Hyde, whose speciality is in juvenile violence and adolescent offenders, most offenders are adults over the age of 18 at the time of the murders. 1 in 5 are carried out by offenders under the age of 18. Dr. Hyde says that adolescents are at a higher risk of murdering their parents when their home life is problematic because they have nowhere else to go. They cannot simply leave. They have no formal education to get a job and take care of themselves. To add to that, they are still developing and have less life experiences, and do not understand their own emotions. With adult children, they can leave and get a job and are more mature to handle difficult situations. Adolescents cannot balance decisions in the same way adults can. When adults do end up killing their parents, it's either for selfish or financial reason, or severe mental health. In some rare cases, long-term abuse can turn an adolescent to murder. They often turn to murder as they can no longer deal with the situation. The abuse can cause long-term depression, then post-traumatic stress disorder, which typically is not discovered until after the murders. In a study of 5,488 cases of children killing their parents in the United States, 4,768 were male. Family and friends gathered on October 5 at Palmer Bush and Jensen Funeral Home in Holt, Michigan to pay their last respects to John, Barbara, and Ryan Sougstad. Joseph Anderson's marriage fell apart, and his wife wanted a divorce. He couldn't handle losing his family, so he decided to murder his beautiful wife and 2 adorable children. A loving father could never look at their innocent children and end their precious lives. He was a selfish monster. Daniel Sougstad had a history of mental illness. He had been hospitalized before for delusional thoughts and psychosis. He lost touch with reality and murdered his brother and parents. His parents should have never had guns in the home, knowing he was mentally ill. Of course, it's not the parents' fault they are dead, and this is not meant to blame the victims, but we have to start taking responsibility for our actions. If someone has mental illness, do not give them easy access to take your life. If there's even a hint of mental illness, get rid of any weapons. It's a miracle Ryan's daughter, Quinn, wasn't murdered as well. Hopefully she gets therapy for the horrific events she watched unfold that terrifying night. May the victims in both cases rest in peace. That concludes this episode. Keep your eye out for the next volume, coming soon. If you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing. Thanks for watching.
Want to help support the channel you love, and get something in return? Simply purchase some Elizabeth's Chronicles merch. We have coffee mugs, t-shirts, sweatshirts, cozy blankets, beach towels, phone covers and more. Use the coupon code EC10OFF4U and get 10% off your order. The link to order is in the description area below this video. Thanks for helping Elizabeth's Chronicles continue to make the videos you love.